Hi, how are you today? Today I'm going to share with you this video called Thinking of Cutting Costs Due to COVID-19. Watch this video before you make 3 common mistakes. And the reason why I want to share with you this video is because I'm talking to so many of my clients and they're all sharing with me this whole idea that they need to cut costs. But what are we really going to do in this crisis? Is cutting costs really the solution? Okay, but before we start, let me just introduce myself. My name is Jeremy and I'm a scaling up coach. I help CEOs across the region, in the Asia Pacific region, to scale their business. And that's why I've been in touch with my clients, talking to them and finding out from them how are things going and what's happening. And they all tell me that the number one pressure on their mind now is how to preserve cash and to cut costs. So let's talk about that. Now, I want to share with you 3 common mistakes that people make when it comes to this situation, right? And they feel the pressure about cost and about cash flow, and the number one reaction is to cut costs. Now, the first thing we want to note is, are you misunderstanding the problem? Is cutting costs really the solution, or are you just making a knee-jerk reaction? Yesterday I was talking to one of my clients whose family runs, airlines and hotels, resorts, restaurants, and travel companies. So you can imagine how big the impact must be for them. And he said that the first thing that comes to your mind is cut costs because it's like a knee-jerk reaction. But is it really the problem? Is cutting costs really the solution? Because very often when people cut costs, they cut away assets or they cut away the capability to do something else. And I asked him this question and say that, hey, take a minute, take a step back. Are there opportunities within the crisis, right? Or what about opportunities after the crisis? Because very often when people cut costs, right, they are dealing with an immediate problem, but they fail to see that the root of the problem is actually maybe not the costs or the cost factors, which might be people, right? And when cut the cost and reduce the people, what happens is that when the situation improves, you find yourself not having the ability to maximize on the opportunities that comes after that. So instead of cutting costs, I asked him this question. I said, look, are there opportunities that this crisis brings about that could lead you to improve on your business model? Because you see, very often cash flow and costs are also related to the business model, but people don't see it that way, especially when things are going well. But when a crisis comes, the first thing they think about is to cut costs. So these are 3 mistakes that I want you to think about, that you don't want to make this mistake when you are thinking about cutting costs. Be very clear, what are you actually trying to achieve? I always remember my friends in HR, when they are HR of like huge MNCs, and every quarter when they report, the financial results, and if there's a drop in results, what is the first thing that they will do? They will cut costs, right? They are expected to show that they are doing some things, but they always tell me this, right? They will show that they will be cutting, say, for example, 500 people, so that they can account to shareholders and the board how they are going to make the bottom line better next quarter, right? But because they've cut away 500 people that are crucial to meeting the results for next quarter, what do they do the next quarter? Hire back 500 people, right? So that is an example of misunderstanding the problem. It is not cutting costs that is the problem, but very often it is about the business, the way we do the business. So this is a good time to take some time, take a step back and reflect. Is our business model really working? Is it really the problem? What do we need to fix? However, after you have thought through these 3 questions, and yes, you have identified that yes, you need to cut costs, how do we go about doing that? So I want to give you 3 guidelines on what to think about when you are cutting costs. And the first one is, do not cut people. Very often people are not the real problem. The real problem is something else, right? But people think about the time invested in training and building people for your company and what they actually represent. You will need them when the crisis turns, right? So the first thing that comes to your mind is, don't cut people. Now, you don't want to lose assets, because assets gives you a ROI, a return on your investment. So you got to see people that way. Okay, so don't cut people. The second is, do not do things that will damage the culture. And that is linked to the first point, cutting people, because when you cut people, you send a message out that we are not in this together, right? The management is turning back on some people, but instead, what you want to do is to reinforce this culture so that when things get better, you have a stronger team. So do not make those cuts that will lead to damaging or destroying your culture. You know, this business owner that I was talking to yesterday, he actually shared with me, he was torn between two things. One is to cut, because that's an immediate reaction. But he also asked himself this question: what about my core values? I have been talking a lot about building a team, and the first thing that comes to my mind when we go into a crisis is to cut. And that is actually where he took a step back and asked himself, what can I do without damaging the culture? So I shared with him that if you really need to cut, cut things that do not add value to the customer or the business. This is a good time to streamline the business. So for example, I asked him this question. I said, which is easier to replace, right? People that you have developed, worked with for over a long period of time, or maybe some assets like vehicles, right? Maybe you need to sell some vehicles, generate cash flow. Maybe in your restaurants you don't need to order so much food, right? These are things that are easily replaceable, and you want to cut those things first. So cut things that do not add value to the customer or to the business, or even better still, if you can find those things that create hassle for your business, now is the time to cut it. So, how do you cut the cost without damaging the morale of the company? If you finally really need to cut something, do it by consensus. So, get everybody to take part in this decision. It should not be something that is invisible or mysterious, like something that, only the people at the top, they have a secret meeting and they come up with a list of things to cut. That kind of actions will put a lot of suspicion and worry into the hearts of your people. So, cut by consensus. So, what I advise this client of mine in the travel industry to do is to get all his people back, all his key people back into the headquarters and to run a town hall to share with them this is the situation we are in and this is what the company hopes to achieve, right? And we agree that if we can keep everybody at a 50% salary, we should be able to keep the company going for the next 6 months without firing anybody. So set some bottom line and say this is what we intend. Right now, everybody do two things. One, ask what are some areas we can improve in our business model so that we improve our business, and also at the same time, what are those things that we should cut without cutting people. Okay, so everybody partakes in this decision in the town hall so that it's clear, and you brainstorm and come up with the list of things, and then after that, let those who are going to be affected by the decision decide what to cut. I call this cutting by bottoms up, not top down, right? Top down creates a lot of anxiety and worry, but the people who are the most affected, they decide what to cut. So this way they feel an ownership. They will make sure that they will do the right thing for the company. And lastly, cut by example. We all know about leading by example, but what about cutting by example? So leaders cut first. So when I talked to the CEO, he agreed that maybe the best is for him to take a 3-month no pay in order to save the most vulnerable people in his company. And he should communicate that and say, no, I lead by cutting. And also look at the list of perks, right? So he's going to sit down with his senior team, work through a list of perks, and start cutting those perks first. So they cut by example before going to the company and say, everybody has to take 50% pay cut if we are not going to lose anybody in this 6 months. So these three things: cut by consensus, cut by bottom up, cut by example. So, and the last thing I want to share with you is the key is really to communicate, communicate, communicate. Share with your people what the company is going through. Share with the people what the company needs to do, and get the people involved. Get the people to share their ideas, their brainstorm, so that they will take ownership of what to cut. So, one more time, my name is Jeremy. I'm a scaling up coach. If you think that this video is helpful, please share it with your friends, because I know that that particular business owner, he's going to go out there and he's going to share what I have talked to him about with his forum mates, because every company is really grappling with this question of how to cut costs or how to get through this period. So, one more time, if you want to know more about us and you want some more resources, this is the video channel on YouTube. I have a whole series on how your company can react during the COVID-19 crisis and come out stronger. So watch that video if that's what you need. And once again, thank you very much for watching. You can contact us at grow@growthcatalyst.com.sg. So please remember, if you need to cut costs, watch this video again and make sure you cut it correctly. Thank you very much. See you again.